So if you don't know, Rivals of Aether 2 has its own circuit called R2CS, where a bunch of different tournaments, fall under it. You get points and you can participate in the championship. I think today, is it today? Yeah, I'm looking at the time. They announced another online event, usually hosted by Hungrybox, and the timing of it is kind of awkward. And I'm going to go into a bit more about the past afterward. I just want to kind of go into like what's happened today and why I want to talk about this. Thank you to Coach Zeke for having this tweet up. They announced that there's going to be an online qualifier between Port Priority and Heatwave 8, which are going to be two pretty big events for Rival Circuit. It's happening on like a Wednesday in the middle of the week. But the thing is, no one really knew about this event until it was like announced. It was like literally announced, I guess, today. And this is now what, the 12th? So today's the 4th. So 8 days out. So it's announced with like no time whatsoever in between. How do you even plan for this? And it's between two events where some people are, going to be traveling in between for. So how it's just like, how are we announcing qualifiers 8 days out? I know it's an online tournament. There's not as much commitment for it, but it just feels so unprofessional to have this little amount of time, especially considering the time and date. Now, I know they are planning to change the date after getting this kind of criticism that, like, I think HBox put out a tweet for 2 different days, potentially one, I think in November, one in December, for this event, and what dates would end up being better. So at least they are responding, which is great, but this shouldn't have happened to begin with. But the more I kept digging into the R2CS, the more it kind of just pissed me off with how Rivals has handled it. Because first of all, this is not the first time an online event has been given this short of notice for when it's happening. And like, once again, yeah, it's online. You don't have to travel or anything like that. But I feel like this should be scheduled or like be a part of the schedule way more in advance than it currently is. Because it's like, once again, it's an online tournament. You can schedule that any weekend. And I know that there's some events that they're scheduling as they go. Like, I think Frosty Faustings and Let's Make Big Moves just got announced as a circuit events for January. To be honest, I don't even know when the championship still is. So I don't know what. I feel like there's just not a lot of clarity. And I went searching, trying to find information about anything about the current circuit. And Liquipedia usually is my go-to for these kind of things, and it has nothing. Like, it has some of the events down here, but it's outdated. The next thing I looked for was on the Twitter account, and Twitter like retweets the announcements that certain events do, but like there's no calendar anywhere that, as far as I can see. So that already was also annoying. What I kind of had to go through was ending up being the Start GG page, and this is finally where I found where events are happening and like what is actually part of the circuit and what to watch. And it's nice that this exists, but like the fact this is the only thing that I can find that has this is insane to me. And maybe I'm just not looking at the right places. I don't know. But so already marketing just feels like it's a mess. Event planning feels very ad hoc, where it's just like, it's not very confirmed that far out. Maybe it is, I don't know, but that's just how it feels, that we're getting announcements for events that are happening like a little over 2 months later. And that's, I guess, fine for traveling for events, but it's good. Like, people want to plan that stuff ahead. So there's that. And then on top of all of that, I feel like the coverage has just been, man, I don't know. It's like, when I check on their YouTube, I know they like cover live stream events, at least on their channel, and they'll help with that kind of things. But outside of top 8 highlights, there's no other real coverage for this event. Like, for me to know when events are happening, I feel like top 8 highlights isn't doing any justice for these events at all in terms of establishing storylines. Why should I get invested in the players? Why should I get invested in the game to begin with? Like, it just feels like they want this, it kind of, the R2CS just exists, but there's so little around it to make it a bigger thing, and it just feels like such untapped potential in my eyes. And because like coming from Smash, I obviously would kill for a circuit, and I remember what the circuits did for the scene in 2022, and Rivals having its own, owned by the devs, like supported by the devs, it just feels like an afterthought sometimes. Another thing that I recall is like a lot of their community managers weren't at these events. And a big one was that there was no community manager at Evo, and Evo had shit go down. Like, the police were called. Obviously, there's a whole thing that happened, and I'm not going to get into the weeds of that because I don't know enough to really talk about it. But like, the fact that your own community manager wasn't there, I think there wasn't one at Supernova, and I think there wasn't one at Riptide either, based on what I've heard. I don't know. It's wild to me. I don't get it. I don't get it. So yeah, that's just my little rant. I kind of want this. I hope they put a little more effort into it, but at the same time, like, I don't know how big their team is now, especially post-launch. I don't know what their finances look like, considering they're pretty much funded by game sales and cosmetics. So I don't know where money's being allocated towards right now. So obviously, they're not a big company. Budgeting for R2CS might just be very small, and that is what it is. But it feels like, why bother having a circuit if you're not really gonna do anything with it? And that's what kind of where I'm getting confused. Outside of like promoting tournaments, you're just not doing anything to help beyond that. And I kind of wish there was more. But who knows what they're truly capable of, like, in terms of funding. So I can't like exactly hammer them down for that because I don't have those kind of insights. But it just feels like there's a lot of mismanagement, and I'm not even going to talk about like the patches for the game or anything, because there's a bunch of things I think there are some pain points right now in Rivals. But to me, the treatment of how you run a circuit to grow your scene feels very important. And I feel like the effort isn't going where it should, or the poorly planned decisions, or maybe short-sighted decisions that just aren't. Like, you could see there's frustration in the community over these things, and it's kind of, especially with these online events, really blowing up further than it should. And it's good that they're responding, but like, this shouldn't be a problem to begin with. And that's kind of where my frustration lies. I feel like it'd be huge for Rivals 2 local scenes. Most players that convert from another game to Rivals is usually because of them being inspired by tournament sets. More coverage would do wonders for the scene. Yeah, like, it's like these top 8 highlights, fine. I'm not saying they're bad. It's cool that they're there. But when you look at kind of Smash as a sphere, or like other fighting games, or even like other sports and esports, there are players with stories that people like to follow. And that is, unfortunately, even if the game is good and fun to watch, the investment of the players is still important for the story, like to get people interested in the game outside of the game itself. There is something really cool that I like to kind of flip and show like a more positive thing for Rivals. Wisely, I'm someone who I work for as an editor, so I've known about this for a while. It is doing something really cool, which is kind of, if you know of Sajam and the Sajam Slam, those are fighting games. He's getting like, you know, a bunch of streamers together, of very high profile ones too. A lot of these guys have like 1 million+ followers, pretty much doing a Sajam Slam of creators playing Rivals of Aether. And he's got coaches involved, commentaries involved. I know Off-Brand Games is already helping as well. They're doing things that are important to growing the game, but it's just like, I don't get why the circuit feels so short-sighted in comparison. I don't know. But I'm pretty excited for this. I'm going to be working behind the scenes with him to get things going, and it's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to it.